All right, good afternoon. Thanks for being here today. I'm Bill Keffer here at the law school and in charge of our energy law program and in charge of this energy law lecture series, of which today is a part. So thanks for being here. Those of you who haven't been before, thanks for making it. You've got another chance on Wednesday because our previous lecture series event was victimized by our power outage on that Monday back from spring break. So we had to cancel that day. But fortunately, we were able to reschedule that speaker, who's Tricia Curtis with petronerds.com out of Denver. And she'll be here Wednesday this week, Wednesday the 16th at noon in Lanier. And for those of you who are also interested in a little more, after her lecture at noon on Wednesday, she is going to do a Q&A in room 106 from 2 o'clock to 2:50 for students that want to stop by and listen in on that or ask her questions, follow-up questions, even from the noon lecture. That's the normal time for my Oil and Gas Law 2 course, but we don't meet on Wednesdays. So there'll be Oil and Gas Law 2 folks there, and I've invited my Oil and Gas Law 1 students to sit in if they want to, but all of you are welcome to sit in as well. So that'll be our last event for the semester. Tricia Curtis, Wednesday the 16th. Also need to make a couple other sort of administrative housekeeping announcements. Those of you who are in my Oil and Law class 1 and 2, remember that you need to sign in down front here on those attendance sheets in order to get extra points added to your final grade for attendance. So don't forget, if you haven't done it already, do it before you leave. And for those of you who are on Zoom, thanks for joining us. I need to let you know that our video of the speaker here in the room is not working at the moment. So you're going to see Rick's PowerPoint slides, but you won't see Rick. So I'll just send you a picture or tell you how he looks and pass that along to you. But he looks great. And you just want to have the video aspect of this presentation. So keep up with the PowerPoints, but don't be put off because we don't have the video. And then those of you who are wanting CLE with the State Bar of Texas, there will be a course number that comes up with a QR code at the end of the presentation. You can use your phone to grab that. And if for some reason you're unable to do that, just let me know and we'll provide that course number to you this afternoon or whenever you let me know. All right, so I think that's everything. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest speaker for today. This is going to be a really interesting talk, and the topic is going to just underscore how the oil and gas industry is continuing to just be way out ahead of the technological curve with innovation. And this is just an incredible development that this company has already launched and is in progress right now. Our guest speaker is Rick Fletcher. He's Vice President of Land and Acquisition or Administration of Atlas Energy Solutions. And he's also a tech law alum. He graduated from this law school in 1989. He worked for about 20 years with Cotton Bledsoe in Midland, had his own law office after that for a few years, then went in-house with a company called Henry Resources in Midland, very well-known independent, and made the move to Austin in his current position several years ago and has just been going like gangbusters with those companies ever since. More than 40 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. He brings a wealth of legal and operational expertise to the lecture series. He currently oversees land and administrative operations at Atlas Energy Solutions and has held executive roles across several companies, including serving as general counsel of Atlas Sand Company, chief legal officer of Anthem Ventures, and president of Anthem Water Solutions. Those are all companies that are basically owned and operated by a guy in Austin named Bud Brigham. If you know that name, he's sort of a Boone Pickens kind of guy. I mean, he's someone who has really been very successful in the oil and gas business and has had many, many companies and just done amazing work. Before joining Atlas in 2017, Rick was general counsel and vice president of Henry Resources, and like I said, was in private practice in the Permian Basin for many years before that. He is going to be speaking today on the topic of the Dune Express, a West Texas innovation. I'll let you hear the details from him, but basically This is all automated frac sand movement in the Permian Basin that it will just blow your mind as he makes his presentation. Help me welcome Rick Fletcher.
Well, good afternoon. And my mic, is it, can you hear me okay? There it is, got it. Good afternoon. And thank you for having me. I always look forward to making this presentation. I've given this talk many times, but this is one where I've kind of culminated a lot of what we do at Atlas into one talk. I'm not sure we have enough time to cover everything, but we will do our best here. I have to tell you, I kind of feel like I'm at church. I don't know why everybody's sitting on the back row, but it's good to be here. Let me tell you just a little bit. Bill did a very good job. Professor Keffer did a very good job of telling you a little bit about myself, but I am a 1989 graduate of this law school. I actually went to undergrad down the street at Lubbock Christian, where I graduated with an accounting degree. Went to Abilene for a little bit and was a controller for a drilling company in Abilene, a family-owned drilling company for about 5 years. This was in the early 80s. Probably before most of you were even born, would be my guess. But it was a time where the oil industry was doing some interesting things. And at the end of that 5-year period, we closed the doors of this drilling company, and I went to law school. Came back to Lubbock, and have not looked back since. After going through law school for 3 years, I really came to the conclusion that the oil industry was something that I really wanted to be a part of and continue to be a part of, even in a legal practice. I ended up going to Midland, was a partner with Cotton Bledsoe, Ty and Dawson for about 20 years, and then out on my own for a little while and then went in-house. All of that period in the last 40, 45 years has all been oil and gas related. Even in my practice at Cotton Bledsoe, I was a trial lawyer. Even in that capacity, everything had a splinter to oil and gas. There was nothing that we could do out here that did not have some tie into the industry itself. So I say all that to say, the industry is extremely important to me, and one that I value greatly, something that has not been valued, I don't think, in times past. But the company that I'm with now, and the reason I chose to go with the Brigham entities was that very reason. It valued fossil fuels, and it valued the production of what we know today as probably the premier energy source that the world will know for during my lifetime at least. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Atlas and how we facilitate from a midstream company some of this production in the industry that is so important to me, and I'm presuming to you as well. Atlas Energy was something that started in 2017. I was one of the original 15 employees that came together to start what was going to be a frac sand mining entity. We had acquired some locations out between Kermit and Monahans, Texas, out west of Midland, and was starting to build our facilities. As you see right here, this is one of our facilities. This is actually our Kermit facility where we move sand. It's moving sand this very moment. But one of the things that we did over a very short period of time was grow a midstream industry. And part of that was diversifying, and I'm going to show you some things as we get further into the talk here about how we did some of that. But the primary purpose of what we were doing was to develop and mine frac sand. I'm going to Blake, I'm not sure what's going on.
Blake is not moving.
How many of you know what frac sand actually is? Okay, there's quite a few of you do. Frac sand really is just nothing more than real fine sand. but it is a type of sand that a particular mining operation is looking for. And what was happening in about, I would say anywhere from 5 to 10 years ago, what was happening was all of the frac sand that was being mined at the time was in the Northeast. It was actually coming out of Wisconsin. Even the operators that were operating down here in the Permian Basin at the time, and the Delaware was really kicking off, particularly the southern side of it in Texas, was really kicking off from an operations standpoint. A lot of the drilling was taking place in that area. You're also seeing it in the Midland Basin and up on the upper shelf around Midland as well. There was a lot of activity still in the Sprayberry that was going on. Horizontal drilling had not quite kicked off, but it was coming into its own. I remember the day at Henry Resources that we decided that horizontal drilling was not a myth, that it was going to be something that was going to be part of our lives for the rest of our lives. And in fact, it really took off. And that's the reason the frac sand came into being at that time. What was happening in the Northeast, though, and Wisconsin particularly, was they were railing frac sand to the Permian Basin. Frac sand was coming down. It was costing an exorbitant amount of money to get it here. And so that the operators, all of the ones that were operating in our areas here, Exxon, Chevron, Conoco, Apache, all of the big ones that were in the basin, were spending anywhere from $80 to $100 a ton on sand. So that is how we began thinking about the process of there's got to be local sand somewhere that we can tap into to make that cost efficiency more efficient. And that's exactly what started happening. We were not the first to do it. Actually, the Wisconsin group came down first. They found the sand in an area that most of us had been playing in for most of our lives, the Monaghan sand dunes. They started tying up locations down there and really facilitating what was going to be a mining operation and called the Kermit Trend between Monahans and Kermit, about an 18 to 16 mile swath between the two towns where the sand was being primarily mined. We had the fortune of grabbing some of what we believe is some of the premier sand outside of Monahans and then outside of Kermit. Kermit is really where we really concentrate our facilities right now. It was right into the heart and the middle of the sand basin there. But what we were looking for was a very fine silica, a fine sand that could be tested. And as you will hear from the engineering side of it, for its turbidity, its hardness, its crushability, all terms that make a difference in the sand mining community. What you're looking for is sand that once it goes down the hole under very high pressure can withstand pressure and go into the fractures so that the oil and gas can be released. All the sand does is go into these fractures and hold these fractures open. But what it has to do is withstand pressure and withstand crushability. And so that's the sand we were looking for. We found that in Monahans and in Kermit. Atlas has really four focuses, and we added a fifth here of late. Proppant resources, the Dune Express, our trucking facility, logistics, and the distributing mining, which I'll go into very briefly at the end of this. But here of late, we've kind of diversified ourselves into more generation. We're starting to bring generation to the oil field as well. We acquired Moser Energy Solutions in the last couple of months and have brought about 500 large oil field generators into the business to help diversify kind of the cycles of the oil industry. These are the locations of our 5 mines. Primarily the ones that we have, 4 of them are up at Kermit, which you'll see here. And you'll see the dotted green line is actually what we call the Dune Express, which is what we will talk about here in just a little bit. And then our Monahans mine is down here. As a crow flies, it's about 18 miles between the 2 mines. Between those 2 mines, we move 1,800 sand trucks a day. 1,800 sand trucks a day. We believe that as the Dune Express continues to kick off, we will see that increase more to about 2,500 to 3,000 as it starts locating itself more around the conveyor that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. This is one of the things I wanted to show you just real quickly. One of the diversifications that we brought with an acquisition that we had last year was when we purchased the sand company High Crush entity. High Crush had what was thought to be one of the more innovative things at the time, and it was mobile sand units. We called them mobile minis. And what it was that you could move your sand production in different locations. What it opened for us was east of Midland, where everything was located primarily around fixed facilities in the Kermit Trend. We now had open to us sand and good sand that was east of Midland, and we could service a lot of the locations that were in the Midland Basin at the time. We have 10 units that we deploy and we move around to different locations throughout the Midland Basin. One of the things, this right here, and I'll show you this very quickly, this was my nemesis for 4 years. This little creature is called the dune sagebrush lizard. One of the reasons I went to Brigham was because I had some government relations and government affairs experience with Henry. And what I did for nearly 4 years of my life was just spend most of it in DC, working with the Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Land Management, trying to find some solution that would let everybody continue to mine sand in the Permian Basin. This lizard was about to shut everything down. And the reason is that it ended up on the endangered species list. And it was, in our minds, and again, this is how much we love the industry. We were very choice with our words as we approached the Department of Interior and Fish and Wildlife particularly, that we believe the only reason that this lizard was on the endangered species was to shut down the industry. There was no other reason. The only place that this lizard can be found is in the Kermit Trend right now. There's a little bit of it in New Mexico, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But one of the things that was most prevalent was that where the NGLs, all of the ones that wanted to get more industry control, as I guess I would put it, really started focusing on what is this location right here. This particular map gives you an indication of what the Kermit Trend looks like. It's a location between Monahans, Texas and Kermit, Texas, and all that location is what has been identified as dune sagebrush lizard territory. The different colors, as you'll see from the legend here, is just the different levels of habitat that will be found. As you'll see, our mines are in the highest habitat in the location. So it was going to be critical that we find some solution that was going to allow us to continue to mine if indeed this lizard became listed as endangered. Over that 4-year period, I worked with the Department of Interior. It was during Trump's first administration. And it was a dogfight, particularly with Fish and Wildlife. I ended up drafting about a 150-page conservation plan that allowed for us to get into the Department of Interior, into Fish and Wildlife, and start the negotiations. What we ended up with was a document, again, that we produced that President Trump and David Barnhart, was Secretary of the Department of Interior at the time, signed off on. It was a very interesting process. As President Biden was coming into office, he was inaugurated at 11:45 on that cold afternoon. I remember this. I still have nightmares about this. 11:45 on that afternoon, I received a document that President Trump and David Barnhart had signed off on at 11:48. I was absolutely convinced that I had missed it and that we were going to have to shut our minds down. It was 2 minutes after he was inaugurated. I got a bunch of lawyers, DC lawyers involved in it, and what we found out is that, and this is interesting legislation, you probably know this, but the president does not take office until noon. So I made it. We got it under the table and into the process, and it hasn't been challenged since. There is a lawsuit right now in the Western District of Midland that is challenging just the endangered species aspect of it, and we're very interested in seeing how that plays out. But the conservation plan that's in place right now in the Permian Basin covers all of Texas and the Permian Basin and allows all sand miners, all operators, all agricultural activity, and all solar and wind farms to participate in what they would otherwise be doing in generating resources in the area. So Atlas was really on the forefront of all of that as well. This is our Kermit facility. This is what it looks like from an aerial shot. We have right now all of these silos right here, and we generate about 8 million tons of sand a year. We keep those silos completely full. As you can see from the bottom of it, those are where the trucks enter and release through those inlets and outlets at the bottom. They enter at the back and they come out at the front facing this way. And sand is dumped from those silos into a truck and they go off to the well site. From our position, this is Kermit, which is just down the street from Lubbock. We do all of this from Austin. Austin is where I live. We have a command center in Austin that is not quite as big as this room right here, but is just full of televisions and computers. And all we do is load sand out of these facilities, our 2 facilities, and off the Dune Express from Austin. There's not one person that handles any machinery at any of these locations that dumps sand into these trucks. That's one of the innovations that we brought to the sand community. This was not being done until we were able to kind of figure it out ourselves. It brought a lot of automation, brought a lot of synergies in technology to what we were otherwise doing at the locations. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Dune Express. And this is really the reason that I think you all are interested in being here. The Dune Express is a conveyor system that we started designing in 2018. We had several engineers. At the time, there were still not very many of us employed at the facility. But we did have 3 very strong engineers that believed this would work. They were the only 3. Even those of us that were inside at the time weren't sure that we could pull this off. But these 3 engineers were absolutely convinced that we could. We now have up and running at this present moment a 42-mile conveyor that runs out of the Kermit facility that goes up to the state line and runs parallel on the Texas side, Texas, New Mexico, for about 21 miles, and then goes up into New Mexico towards Carlsbad for another 20 plus miles. What that does is allows us to get sand to what we call the end of line facility, and allows us to efficiently put sand in trucks that will allow us to get into the northern Delaware, where probably the most prolific drilling and activity is taking place in the Permian Basin right now. What that has done throughout all of this is a variety of different things. This right here is just a pictorial of what that conveyor actually looks like as it moves into New Mexico. But one of the 5 advantages of what we have really collected here is that although we are not, and I know there's a lot of different opinions on this particular subject, but EGS is not a word that we say around our office. We do not, our founder, our board does not even let us say the word. We do not believe that it is a viable, productive thing that is healthy for our industry, for the oil and gas industry. We believe we were already doing that. And in fact, what we proved here is that we actually were. The EGS opportunities that we have that we were promoting, and this was even before EGS was even a term, we started bringing into play those particular things that EGS was trying to possibly eliminate from certain industries. The EGS activities that we believe we can control most are the emissions that we are able to cut, the CO2 emissions, simply because of the conveyor's activity. We've eliminated almost to this day, almost 1 million miles of trucking activity on the roads in the Kerman-Monahans area. That is significant in and of itself because is there anybody here from Kerman-Monahans? Do you know where that location is? Have you ever been out there? I see some hands go up. The traffic out in that area is horrendous. It's deadly. It is absolutely deadly. The only thing that I can analogize it to is when I was trying cases in Midland and would try a case in Kermit. It would take me literally 45 to 50 minutes to drive from my office to the courthouse to Kermit. Last month, I flew into Midland, was literally just outside of Midland where the airport is. I rented my car and then drove to Kermit where our facility was. It took me 3.5 hours to get there. There was no other reason for it other than traffic. 65% of the traffic that's on the roads out there right now are sand trucks. It's not just our sand trucks, it's everybody that's working in the area. Those sand trucks have cost more lives in 3 counties than all of Texas combined. 3 counties in Texas are attributed to the most loss of life because of trucks in all of Texas. One of the things our owner wanted to do because of this particular conveyor was start working on a process that would allow us to start eliminating or at least talking about how do we change that dynamic. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about making profits and moving sand in an efficient way. He was very concerned about how do we take care of communities out in West Texas if we're going to work out there. Bud Brigham is a Midland resident. He was born and raised there. A lot of the folks that he surrounds himself with are West Texas, Permian Basin grown. And so it was important to him. As we started doing the research on the conveyor, what we found is that those type of efficiencies, not the profitability or money-making machine of it, those type of efficiencies made more difference in the political realm than talking about anything else that would put money into the Texas coffers. What we believe and what the research is indicating, it hasn't borne itself out yet, but is starting to show some dividend in it, is that the conveyor itself, this 42-mile conveyor, will save 136 lives in 2025, simply because it has taken trucks off the road. It has taken trucks off the road and moved them closer to where they ought to be, and that's in the oil field themselves, off of public roads. So that is, for us, a very significant messaging point for us in terms of this particular conveyor. It helps, it makes money, it moves sand efficiently, but it saves lives. And we're very proud of that part of it. One of the final thing that I'll just stress about this as we talk a little more about the conveyor itself is that the reliability aspect of what we have here is significant. We can put sand on this conveyor in Kermit. It will move the 42 miles and no hand will ever touch it. No human will have any control over it other than basically a toggle switch in Austin, Texas, that turns it on and off. What we do have is about 50 individuals that they drive this conveyor on a daily basis just to make sure that things are continuing to operate in a manner that they are intended to operate. One of the things when we started putting the land position together that was very critical was that we do have space on both sides of the easement as it was going down this particular thoroughfare, and had the ability to that we could maneuver on both sides of the conveyor itself, so that we could have that type of activity up and down the conveyor. One of the things I do want to stress as well as and it really brings into focus the legal aspect of what was necessary in all of this, and that's the land position that we were able to acquire throughout the process. The conveyor, we just didn't go up and start slapping the conveyor together and putting it wherever we want to do, as I know you know this. It took 4 years to put the land position together on this. It started from the front door of our current facility, and we had to methodically figure out how we were going to place this conveyor in a manner that the landowners would have efficiencies themselves, the landowners could make money off of this conveyor, and that the landowners themselves could buy into the process. At the very beginning, as you can imagine, that was very difficult to do. Nobody believed that a sand conveyor this long to move oil field product was even a possibility. But it took time, and it took massaging, and it took legal minds such as yours to convince landowners that this was going to be a productive and viable solution to problems that were starting to present themselves out in the Permian Basin. One of the things that actually helped is that there are only basically 7 large landowners in this 42-mile stretch of conveyor. One of them was a gentleman by the name of D.K. Boyd. D.K. Boyd owned about 30,000 acres of the land on the Texas-New Mexico border that we wanted this conveyor to stretch across. One of the things that really helped and facilitated this is that D.K. Boyd was an old client of mine years ago when I first started practicing, and D.K. hated lawyers, hated them, wouldn't even let them in the door. I mean, he literally, if there was any smell of legal activity or lawyer on you at all, he was locking his door and wouldn't let you in. I had the opportunity to help him with a few very small things at the beginning and gain trust that allowed me to get into the door and start a conversation and show him that there were some synergies between he and his ranch and our company that would work for all of us. It was one of the things that I really learned how to do in this building right here. Learned how to negotiate, learned how to advocate, learned how to just really talk to people on a relational basis. And it works. The other 20 miles that you will see on the New Mexico side of this was all Bureau of Land Management land. All of it was federal land. And so we had to work and do the same thing, basically, with the federal government that really didn't want to see anything like an oil field expansion on federal property. So it was very important at the time that we show and message to them that the synergies that we could bring to the federal government were things that the federal government would want to buy into. And that was the ESG aspect of it, the reliability of it, the decreased footprint in the oil field that would otherwise be there if you had trucks running in and out, all over the locations. And the mere fact that it was, again, going to save lives at the end of the day. The Bureau of Land Management, even in an administration that really didn't believe that fossil fuels was the direction it wanted to go, bought into this wholeheartedly. We had no difficulties at all with the Bureau of Land Management. They wanted this conveyor to take form. They wanted it to see what it looked like. And I spend a lot of time with the Bureau of Land Management right now, just keeping them informed and showing them the progress that they were very much a part of as we began the process. So the 42-mile stretch is really just one long easement that we were able to acquire over a 4-year period of time. As I mentioned to you earlier, this is one of the very proud things that we message as well, is that we now have crossed over 1 million trucking miles that we have eliminated from the the Monahans Kermit area. And that is something, again, that will facilitate and begin to change the environment out there. Everything that we're doing in the sand fracking business right now is to change environment. Not only as good businessmen, we want to accommodate our shareholders and make sure that we're doing what we said we would do to them, and that's increase their value. But we also want to bring those efficiencies and reliability and safety that this conveyor will bring to the Permian Basin. This is a video that I'm going to show. It's a very short video, but it kind of will let you see what this conveyor looks like as it runs. Right there is the end of line. It is where we stockpile sand in those silos right there. And the trucks will come in and out at end of line and move it into the northern basin, the northern Delaware. Couple of things that I want to point out about the conveyor itself is that it does move at a fairly slow pace, but in terms of the movement of sand itself is quite fast. It takes literally from the Kermit door of our mines to the end of line 4 hours to move a grain of sand from one to the other. So it's a pretty swift and pretty capable process as it moves. Throughout that entire 42 miles, the truck can back itself up, and we've got facilities that will mobilize sand from any place on that conveyor. As you saw, I think very quickly, the conveyor itself has a shield over it. It has basically a hood. When we started engineering this and trying to find the solutions that would most effectively move the sand down this conveyor, that was one of the critical points of the whole process of how are we going to keep the sand on the conveyor, particularly with all the West Texas winds and weather that we see out in this part of the country. We went to Seattle, Washington, to the Boeing facility up there and started working with engineers in that area through their jet engine turbines and the blowing of those particular turbines to find the best solution that we could to keep that sand on the conveyor. We literally had jet engines blowing on these conveyors to see how quickly the sand left it. The facility that you saw, the roof that was over that, was the end result of what we come up with. Right now, we lose less than 0.1% of sand off of that conveyor. We really literally have no loss of sand as it moves from one end to the other. So as you can tell, there was a lot of research, a lot of engineering, a lot of geology, a lot of land that went into all of what we now call the Dune Express. These are just a few of the fun facts. As you can tell, it takes literally about 4 hours from one end to the other. The 42-mile is the second largest conveyor in the world. There is one that is just a little, not, I'm going to say feet longer in Mongolia. And we actually have the engineer that built that conveyor working for us now in Kermit. So that is the largest. We have the second largest. It is the largest in North and South America. There is no other conveyor that is longer than the one that we have here. We also have the longest flight of sand. Actually, as you can tell here, it is broken records that move sand on one particular flight from one end to the other. So although I know it sounds like we're bragging about it, but we do believe that we're on the forefront of innovation, and it's only going to make the industry better. One of the things that, and this will be the last thing that I speak about very quickly to you, this is one of the facilities that we now own and operate, and it is automation, autonomous trucking. We are running 5 autonomous trucks moving sand in the Permian Basin. Autonomous trucking meaning there is absolutely no driver in the truck when it loads sand at our Kermit facility and moves to the location at the well site. This again is bringing immeasurable efficiencies to the industry. And again, and this was something that was very difficult for me to grasp at the beginning, but it is actually much safer than having a human sitting behind the wheel, moving this sand autonomously like this. The longest autonomous delivery we've made to date is 24 miles, 48-mile round trip. Again, the autonomous truck will pull into our facility at Kermit. We'll go through, we'll dump sand from Austin into the autonomous truck, and it will go to location over a leasehold road that has been measured and satellite dimensioned by a company by the name of Kodiak. Kodiak is a group out of DC that is, again, a group of engineers that have come up with this process, and we have a long-term contract relationship with them that allows us to do this. We have, again, 5 trucks that are moving sand autonomously right now. By the end of this year, we plan to have 100 trucks moving sand autonomously throughout the Permian Basin. That means there's going to be at least 100 trucks with no drivers running up and down leasehold roads. And again, bringing the efficiencies that we believe that only the industry can bring at this time. The autonomous trucking aspect is something that is very interesting. I don't know if you're starting to see the autonomous Ubers here in Lubbock or not. We've got them all over Austin at the moment. You can actually choose on your Uber site whether you want to ride autonomously or you want a driver in the vehicle. And you will see those quite frequently in the city. They work. And again, it's going to save lives. One of the things, again, in my job, as part of my job as a government relations facilitator, is dealing with these type issues at the state capitol, at the federal level as well. One of the things that has been most interesting to me is how the different states where we are starting to move autonomous trucking deal with this particular issue. Texas loves it. Texas absolutely loves the aspect of having the ability to do this. And there is some legislation right now that is facilitating the process of putting autonomous trucking on highways, which they already are there. Not only in the major highways, the interstates, but also in all of the major cities and even the smaller communities as well. To date, we don't move any of our sand trucks on public roads. They're all on leaseholds. But our plan is to start moving them that way because, it will just be more efficient. So our company, we believe, is continuing to press the envelope. We want to be on the forefront of a lot of the things that is going on in the industry because we believe the industry is viable. We believe that fossil fuels is the direction that the world needs to go. It can only bring better flourishing for humans as we continue to grow what we all do and what we all love in this particular area. That's my presentation. I thank you for the opportunity to let you talk about my company a little bit. I will open it up. If any of you have any questions, we'd love to ask and answer any questions if you got time.
Got a minute or two for questions. Anybody want to ask one in the auditorium here? Got one in the back. Be
Yes,
sure
sir.
and use your microphone there. Yep.
You talked a little bit about your use of landmen for particularly the Dune Express project.
Yep.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, or on whether it's purchasing surface, negotiating surface agreements to acquire your sand? I'd like to get a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Landmen are my best friends. Love them. And I had a whole group of some of what I felt like were some of the best landmen in the Permian Basin working on this thing. At one time, I had 15 different landmen helping me pull easement and surface use agreements together so that we can make this happen. But it was sending those guys out as they are masters at doing and working with landowners to get them to an understanding that the messaging that we brought was something that they could live with. So that process, at the very beginning, it was me and one of my land managers was actually doing it, and we saw it was much more of a project to get this done, that we needed more heads on the table to make this work. So that's how we ended up with the amount of landmen working on it. They were contract landmen, they weren't employees, which most landmen really would prefer to work contract because they have mobility themselves. But it was a necessary, and probably, if you ask me, because I've worked with landmen a good part of my career, there is nothing in this industry that doesn't begin and end with land. We can't do anything without them. And landmen are critical to what goes on. And some of the best landmen I've ever worked with were lawyers first. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Well, listen, if you have a question, come on down front after we adjourn, and Rick will stick around for a second or two before we have to run off and have lunch. And if you want to come hear him speak in class, he's going to join my Oil and Gas Law 2 class at 2 o'clock in room 106, and you're welcome to sit in on that if you'd like to join us there. But help me thank Rick Fletcher for being with us today.